This is actually one of my favorite games on the slate for Sunday. The Buffalo Bills heading to Seattle. Uh, Pretty big home game for Seattle. Uh, 5-2 Buffalo Bills, 4-3 Seattle, leaders of their divisions respectively. I believe Buffalo is still favored by 3 right now. If that has changed, let me know. But as far as injuries are concerned, for the Bills, it seems like it's a pretty healthy list for them. Curtis Samuel questionable with a shoulder injury. Obviously, still no Matt Milano. Uh, but some good news for Matt Milano is he's expected to return this year, hopefully later on by week 13 or so. And then as for the Seahawks, a couple big injuries. Obviously, they're still dealing with some injuries in that secondary. No Tariq Woolen, no Rayshawn Jenkins. Last week, Woolen should be good to go this week, but the big hit coming into this game, DK Metcalf sprained MCL, and 100% of the blame has to go to Geno Smith for throwing that ball to him. If you guys want to watch that yourselves, I don't think he had any business doing it. I just want to shout out the right tackle, Michael Jarrell. He stepped in for Stone, for Abraham Lucas, for George Fant. He played really well. That was a position that they were really struggling at. He really stepped in versus Atlanta, played a very good game. Julian obviously played a terrific game. I think this is going to be a great competitive matchup. I think the home field advantage really helps Seattle. I do want to see one more week of Amari Cooper and Josh Allen before I just think it's all of a sudden going to work. I actually like Seattle to cover. And I think they have a good shot at winning this game at home versus a Buffalo team that's still, kind of figuring it out. Amari just got there last week.
And I think Seattle getting Reek Woolen back potentially this week is going to be big time, going up against a wide receiver core that now has pretty legitimate teeth with, Amari Cooper. Obviously going to have 2 weeks of practice with Josh Allen. I kind of like the over in this game. It's set at 47. But that also may change. I also may lean to the under depending on what DK is going to do, because he's obviously the big play guy down the field for them to be able to stretch the ball. Shout out to Kenneth Walker. He's been playing his ass off for Seattle. Running the ball really well, and I think a lot of people had thought that was going to be kind of a split backfield. He's really taken it over. Just as the workhorse for there. I lean Buffalo in this one. And I'm just not sure about how many points are going to be scored, on both sides of the ball. If 47 is too high, if they're not going to have DK Metcalf, how Seattle's going to be able to move the ball. And if, that is something that causes, Buffalo to start stacking the box against what is not a very good offensive line in Seattle, both pass blocking and run blocking. I lean Buffalo here, and I also kind of lean the under just in terms of the question marks about how Seattle's going to be able to move the ball.
So, Mike, you don't trust Jake Bobo to step in and fill admirably for DK Metcalf?
We'll see, man. We'll see.
Jake Bobo at his 4.940 at his pro day.
He's my guy.
I like Jake Bobo, though. I like him.
He had a key drop, a bad drop in the Atlanta game, though.
Yeah,
but he's been playing well.
Yeah. He was undrafted and he made the team last year. That's impressive in its own right. But the only thing that gives me cause of concern for Buffalo, you mentioned it, Christian, teams that come from the East Coast and fly all the way to the West Coast and play. This is why Seattle always seems to cover spreads at home, is because they get teams in the spot where they have to travel across country and play in that environment. I think from a talent, from a talent injury perspective, obviously the advantage is in Buffalo. But yeah, I think Seattle's a little bit more frisky. They've got an opportunity here to win their division if they can keep winning games. This is a game that they need to win, because one of those teams, specifically the 49ers, can obviously probably go and win some games considering how talented they are. So to keep pace, I think this would be a big win to get to 5-3 rather than sitting at 500. I like where Buffalo's offense is going. They're average in YPP going into last week, and granted that was against Tennessee, so they able to beef that stat up a little bit. But I think the addition of Amari Cooper is huge. You're just not dependent on you could play Khalil Shakir to his strength, in the middle of the field. You can draw coverage away from Keon Coleman down the field with a guy like Amari Cooper. I think it definitely opens up that offense a little bit more. Give a little bit of flowers to James Cook. I think he's been solid all year. Ray Davis has been a nice find. That was a good draft pick for them. And Josh Allen, shout out Josh Allen. No interceptions so far this season, which is crazy to think about considering how much he, I guess, had Jordan Love syndrome. I'm going to call it that now. Just putting the ball in harm's way. No picks so far this year. He's taking care of the football. I think Buffalo's defense is average. Personally, they're no Matt Milano. Taylor Rapp's played pretty well this year. I just don't think they have any
shout out
any
Ed Oliver.
beaters. Ed Oliver's a good player. Greg Rousseau's a solid player. They don't have any, I think, stars on defense, but they've got defensive head coach in Sean McDermott. I think that allows them to at least be average to solid on the defensive end. I don't know. I think from a team perspective, I think Buffalo definitely has the advantage, but we're seeing that in the line. I don't love the spot for Buffalo traveling across the country. It's a tough place to play. I think the spot definitely favors Seattle. So the spread's kind of a pass to me. The total is intriguing, Mike. Part of me wants to think the under is a good play here too. It's going to be tough for Buffalo, tougher to play in that environment, and familiarity is still something they're going to need to work on. Obviously, playing in Seattle is much different than playing Tennessee at home. So it's definitely intriguing in that aspect.
One spot I actually do kind of like in terms of, if we're going to talk about a prop. Seattle's given up 65, 58, 48, and 66 to opposing team tight ends. I think maybe looking at, I think Dalton Kincaid has really become, he's kind of coming into his own a little bit more as a receiver, could get the ball a little more just against a defense that's not as good at defending tight ends, especially as of late. He could be one to target for an over in receptions, yards, and maybe even an ATD.
I would include Noah Fant as well. I think both teams can have their struggles against some tight ends, and I think with no DK, Fant is probably going to play a big role in that Seattle offense.
Red zone for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anytime touchdown for Fant, I don't know what they're going to list it at, but they don't have any other big receivers, I guess, other than Bobo. But, I mean, your other two receivers that are top two are Lockett and Smith and Jigba, who are both kind of smaller guys. So, yeah, I like that Fant play, actually, just from a red zone target perspective, perhaps. Just as the bigger guy on that offense.
Yeah, and Darrington Evans, he's stepped up a little bit for Buffalo as their linebacker. For Milano, but I think not having Milano, Kenneth Walker could also.
I was just about to say,
he's the green dot
Walker,
player.
Kenneth
could really take advantage too.
Yeah,
it'll be a good game, I'm sure, and obviously that's really what kind of alerted me to the game was the fact that Buffalo had to come out to Seattle for it.
It's always a tough place to play. I think, historically, going back, Seattle, obviously
outside of Kansas City, you got Kansas City number one, right?
Yeah, I think Minnesota's another hard place to play. It's just the travel at Seattle, especially for East Coast teams coming all the way from the East Coast to Seattle to play. It's always tough to back like a road favorite in that spot, I think. You have to have some really strong reasons to back a road favorite in that spot. I can see Buffalo winning the game by a touchdown, but it's not. I think long term wise, it's not you're going to lose money betting East Coast teams going to Seattle laying points. It's just part of the spot. So it definitely an intriguing matchup though. I think both teams would love to get a win. Probably Seattle a little bit more so. But
Right.
um,
Should be a good game.